All right, this video is going to be an attempt to continue the discussion about reference handling, but move some of the references up to a skeleton model, and then use that skeleton model to drive information down to the individual parts. So this particular assembly does not have a skeleton. Let's go ahead and create one. Create new part, and this time instead of a part, we're going to pick skeleton model. It automatically gives it a name. For now, I'm just going to keep it called side motion skeleton. And it can just copy it from our normal template start part, which is fine. It will automatically assemble it as the first thing in the model tree. You don't have any control over that. And then what we're going to do is, let's go into this particular part, this skeleton part, and let's define the shape of our extrude. Actually, before I do that, let's just do that. Let's go in and define the shape of the extrude. Okay. And let's say that we want the extrude to be normal to this plane here. So let's create a sketch, put it on this surface. Trying to think about where the plane is in the assembly. I think it's going to be like this. So let's try putting it down here. So similar deal. Let's pick a different shape. What's a good shape? How about a triangle? Right. We'll park it right here. And that's probably a little on the small side. And let's replace that with one from here. Yeah, sure, something like that. Okay, so there's our triangle that kind of defines our shape. And then let's make a surface in this skeleton model that represents the different profiles we're going to need. All right, so the die, the punch, the stripper, and the whole, all the different pieces. So let's create an extrude off of this sketch. I want to make it a surface, and let's just make it, let's say 2 inches long. And in this particular case, yeah, let's not cap it at this point. Okay, and then maybe that's our punch size. Let's say the die size needs to be an offset of that. Again, we've got to be in quilt mode. So pick quilts, do an offset. Maybe our die is 2 thou larger. Okay, and pick our inside quilt again, do an offset. Maybe our stripper is 10 thou larger. Okay, and we can reuse these quilts in multiple models, but it kind of gives us something to work with. There is a way to name these individual quilts, so we hover over them in the future. It's a little easier to see what's what. So those are all in our skeleton model. And then let's take and yeah, I guess I'm not going to worry about a published gem for now. We'll just leave them like that, just to demonstrate. Okay, so there's our triangle, right? What we can do now is we can go into, let's just grab this part and our skeleton part. Oops, didn't get them both. Let's try that again. So, shell, skeleton. I better grab the assembly too. There we go. Okay. So we'll come in here, we'll activate the shell. We'll do our, in this case, we're just going to pick the quilt and solidify it. Let's just pick that one there and hit solidify. Now this won't consume the quilt because the quilt's not in this model. So it only consumes the quilt if the quilt's actually in the model where you're removing it. So let's do something like that. All right, so we've got our triangle shape cut. And then if we go back to all the rest of our components, let's say our inner post, this one here, is going to need the one with a 2 thou offset. So we'll pick this one here, solidify, remove material, need to flip it the other way. Okay, and then we'll go back out here to the stripper, activate this, Again, switch to quilts. This time we'll pick the 10th version, solidify, remove material, other way. Okay. Okay, that looks good. So what we can do now is go back to the skeleton model, and let's just hide these surfaces we created for now. And for now, I'm going to hide. Oh, we didn't make the punch, did we? Okay, let's make the punch. So let's go into this punch here. Let's unhide this first one. We're going to need that one. And because we're not cutting something, because we're making material, let's actually copy in that surface. So let's activate this. Pick on the quilt. Again, I'm not going to bother with the copy geom feature right now. I'm just going to do Control-C, Control-V. Okay. And then let's go into our punch model. Now I could move the punch around inside the assembly, but for right now I'm just going to make this bigger to demonstrate proof of concept. Okay. In order to solidify this surface, I need the quilt to go all the way through the model. So let me put this in wireframe so we can see it better. So you can't cut with an open-sided quilt unless it extends all the way through the model. So let's go ahead and just pick on these edges. Let's go back to geometry here. We'll pick on this edge here and do extend. Oh, that didn't work. What did I pick wrong? Oh, you know what? I think I have to use shift. Let's try that again. Pick this one, right click. There we go. Grab the from to boundary loop, and then I can extend it. Oh, what did I pick? Extend. Let's try that again. Okay. So we extend it, make it longer. Now we can take and use this quilt. We switch back to it's shaded with edges here. Now we can take and pick this quilt and say solidify. This time we're removing material and we want to go the other direction, right? Hit OK. And now I have a punch that's exactly that size. So when I go back to my assembly, the punch is now the right correct. Now the size. Let's hide this so we don't have to look at it. Let's turn off our planes. Let's put it into cross-section mode. Okay, and we can see that we have our post here with the slight offset for break. You have your punch, which is on size. You have the pierced hole in the shell, which is on size. And then you have your additional clearance for your stripper. Okay, so the whole stack up. And the beauty of this approach is if we took and, let's make this transparent. You know, if we took and we changed the shape of this initial pierce in the skeleton model, right? So let's go back up here, do edit definition. This is my, sorry, making you dizzy. So there's my original shape, right? Let's just wipe it out. Let's pick, oh, let's see. Let's go to a 4-tip star. Why not? Okay. Close. Let's make them a little bigger. Let's make them a lot bigger. Ooh, that's kind of wacky looking. Sure, something like that. Okay. Hit OK. Regen everything. Now, what happened? In this case, the extend that we had performed failed because the edges we picked aren't there anymore. So since it can't extend all the way, it can't solidify. Probably the better way to solve this is to go up to this first extrude in the skeleton model, and let's just make this extrude a lot bigger than what we know our models are going to be. Okay, so we know it's going to extend all the way through the models, and that way we can just get rid of this extend altogether, and we end up with our star. Turn cross sections off here. Oops, XB. I've still got them on. There we go. Okay. So there's the shape you would have, the whole stack up all the way through all of the parts. Everything's cut, all right? So again, that's another, I guess this would be kind of my preferred solution if I was going to take and try to build something as a start assembly, and I wanted to be able to define the shape in one place, in this case up here in the skeleton model, and then allow it to propagate down to everything else. Now, we could take this a little bit further if we needed to. For example, right now, all of these components are dependent on their position in the assembly. And so if I move something in the assembly, its position is going to update. But that can sometimes be a challenge if you want to mechanize things and see what they look like in an alternate position. In mechanism, if I allowed this stripper to move up, or I allowed this punch to move out, and then I regenerate, things are going to then recalculate where the geometry needs to be based on its new positions. If you don't want that kind of stuff happening, you've either got to set up the mechanism to always move back to the closed position or your neutral position before it regenerates, or you have to copy the references in such a way that they're not dependent on the assembly's positions. And there are ways to do that. For example, let's go into this punch. Actually, let's just activate this punch. And let's go ahead and copy in. I need to show this quilt. Okay. What we're going to do, let me go up above all of that, right? So there's nothing in our punch. What we're going to do is, matter of fact, let's do this. Let's take this even further. Let's just open up this by itself. Let's turn on our planes so we can see what we're doing. Yeah, they're not shown right now. Okay, so there's our planes. Let's copy in that quilt from the skeleton model into this, but without consideration for where the quilt is in the assembly. I just want to copy it into this model. To do that, what we do is pick on our copy geom feature. Again, we pick turn off publish geom, and instead of picking a model from the assembly, notice it says set referencing type to external. That means we're going to go find a model and copy something in. So in this case, we want to copy in something from the skeleton, which is right here. Okay, and default's fine for now. We can change it later if we need to. References, we need to get a quilt. It brings the model up for us in a little window here. All right, so there's the quilt we want to copy in. So again, change your selection to quilt. Pick on this quilt. We've got our references, and we hit OK. And what we've done is we've copied this quilt in. You notice it's set down a little bit, right? Because it's copying it in relative to the same position this quilt is in that skeleton model. Now, if we wanted to move it around, we could take and do edit definition here. And instead of it being placed, default, we could actually specify a coordinate system to place it. And we could position it around. There's other ways to do it, but let's just go ahead and leave that for now. All right, so there's this. And the benefit of this approach is if I take my extrude, bring it back to life, let's just make this big for now, just to demonstrate. Okay. And then take this guy. I should select the quilt. Take this guy, do our solidify, do our cut, remove material. Or no. Yeah, like that. Okay. So there's our punch, right? Now the beauty of this is no matter where I move this punch, it isn't going to try to regenerate this geometry, because what I've done is I've associated this quilt's position between the skeleton and this model independent of the assembly. So if we go back to the assembly, okay, here's the new one that we just placed, right? If we take this punch and we do an edit definition on its placement, and just for now I'm just going to blow away some of these constraints just to prove a point. Okay, so if we pull this guy over here and like that, right, and then I regenerate the assembly, this is never moving. Okay, I'm regenerating, nothing's moving. And that's because this position of this geometry is defined between this part and the skeleton independent of the position of the components in the assembly. And so that can be useful if you're doing mechanism assembly. So kind of keep that in mind.